Hello and welcome to this 10th day of MIAMAFV, where I take a look at my top 5 metal albums of all time.
It's red panty night when you decide to fight me, yeah?
Have you ever? No, I've never! I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
I'm gay.
Heavy metal music has been a staple of my music library for as long as I can remember. My mom was a huge metalhead. She had Slayer's 1983 Show No Mercy on the original vinyl. She had Judas Priest 1977 Sad Wings of Destiny also on the original vinyl. I remember listening to Painkiller on a cassette tape in my mom's Pontiac Grand Am, listening to that, you know, just thinking it was 5-year-old, 4-year-old me thinking this is just painfully, obnoxiously loud music. Please turn it off. But as I get through high school, I start to get back into it, and my mom kind of liked Godsmack and Disturbed and some of these like new metal bands like Slipknot and stuff. But after a while, she realized she was just having that hankering for heavy metal again, and so she turned me on to all this stuff, trying to give it a second go. And what do you know? I took it like a fish to water, and I began a big obsession with heavy metal ever since. I used to have long hair, man. I had hair like halfway down my back. I was going to metal shows every time I could scrape together enough gas money and parking lot money and enough money to buy the tickets to go to Atlanta or to Charlotte or Asheville, wherever I could go. And over the years, I had developed a list of metal albums that I thought were just absolutely awesome. And you'll see them right here. All these metal albums I got that basically defined the genre as I know it. And I want to give you my top 5 heavy metal albums of all time. Now, these are my most favorite top 5 heavy metal albums. They're not the most technically magnificent, although some of them I think are really superb. But just in the interest of showing you what I prefer and what I like, I'm just going to kind of omit some of the classics like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, because if I included like those guys in here, this list would be like nothing but them. So I'm just going to kind of give you my more extreme heavy metal music that I really, really enjoy. So for number 5, let's go ahead and give you guys a little taste into a subgenre of thrash metal that has always stuck with me, and that is crossover thrash metal. Thrash metal has basically been described as heavy metal with some hardcore punk rock influences, but it's not a 50-50 split. It's more like 10 or 15, 25 maybe % hardcore punk rock, and then 75-80% heavy metal. They take the speed, the brevity, and the intensity of hardcore punk rock, and they try to put it into a heavy metal context. For something to be truly a 50-50 split of hardcore punk rock and heavy metal, you gotta look towards crossover thrash metal. And there's a lot of bands that are really good at this. Municipal Waste started off in the thrash metal revival of the late 2000s, and they got really big. Went to one of their heavy metal shows in Atlanta, got my nose broken. It was awesome. But I think my favorite band out of the subgenre has to be one of the most obscure, and a band that never really quite took off, despite the fact that they were fucking awesome. And that is Cross-Examination, and their first studio album, Menace to Sobriety.
Now you face the Shredder.
We start off with Return of the Shredder as the intro music, and then we go straight into Maximum Overchill and the highlight of the record, as far as I'm concerned, Necroponics. Then you have Unlimited Chainsaw, Arson Party Squad, Collateral Damage, Thrashing for the Cash-In, Blackout, Operation Devastation. Just fucking awesome rockin' tracks, and like none of these are over like 3.5 minutes long. As a matter of fact, there's quite a few of them that are under 2 minutes long. And this album, while it is grating with its vocals, to me it just kind of adds to the whole mystique of these guys just going balls out, a million miles an hour, just rocking out in St. Louis, Missouri. They never really did much past this album. They kind of disbanded after they started off with the Hung Jury, and then they made this, the Hung Jury just being an EP, and then a full-length album, and then the band just kind of went away. They recently reformed and put out the EP Dawn of the Dude, but after that, kind of radio silence. I haven't heard much out of them. Perhaps I needed to go do some more research to see if they're still trying to put out some material. But Cross-Examination, great band. I have like 3 of their t-shirts and a hoodie and all their albums, and I can't get enough of them. So that will be the only crossover thrash metal album on this list. And there's a lot of good ones out there. Like I said, Municipal Waste is definitely something you got to check out. There's a whole litany of other bands that you can check out too. But let's keep in the vein of thrash metal, and let's go ahead with Warbringers, Waking into Nightmares. War Without End is just an unhinged masterpiece. It just goes 1,000 miles an hour. The guitars are honestly kind of sloppy. The drum work kind of sloppy. Vocal work definitely sloppy. But these guys are just rocking out, going 1,000,000 miles an hour as fast as they can, and that's what thrash metal is all about. It's a very unpolished album, but Waking into Nightmares shows that these guys aren't just out there thrashing out, but they're actual musicians. The first 2 tracks, Jackal and Living in a Whirlwind, are most certainly just albums of them thrashing out. But as the album continues, it gets more and more complex, and I think it reaches a crescendo with its best track, Shadow from the Tomb.
I will prevail. The beating will never cease.
Shadow from the Tomb is just a rocker. It just has some great riffs in it. I remember being in the crowd in 2009 at the Obituary show, and they were one of the opening acts, Warbringer was, and they started playing this, and people were going fucking wild. That was one of the craziest mosh pits I had ever been in up to that point. It was just a huge circle pit, took up the whole goddamn floor. People just fucking loved it. And every time I hear a Shadow from the Tomb, I'm right there back in the pit again, throwing elbows and just knocking people down and going fucking crazy. And every track on here, while way better constructed than War Without End, are still rockers. I mean, it's not like it's going to bore you to death. It's not like it's something you want to sit down and go, yes, and it's quite good. I like that drum arrangement there. It is kind of that, but it's also, let's get in the pit and fucking bust some heads. So Warbringer have definitely kind of mastered the mosh riff. You know, they have some really good riffs on there in Waking into Nightmares, and throughout the rest of their works, they continue to do that all the way to today. But I think when you want to talk about a riff factory, a band that is just known for a crushing, devastating riff, you got to talk about Bolt Thrower. And they got a lot of really good albums, and a lot of people will argue with me on this, but the first one I listened to was Mercenary. And since I first listened to this album, it just hasn't been topped by anything else on their library. Bolt Thrower has been called war metal by a lot of people. Go on YouTube and you look up War Music Video or WMV. A lot of those videos are set to Bolt Thrower music, and rightly so. You look through their whole library, and it's just a bunch of war and old general references and stuff like that. We start off with Zero, just a rockin' track that gets straight to it. Laid to Waste continues that trend, and you just go through the list to the last. The fifth song is awesome. I still have that. I actually have it in my car right now. This is an empty case, and I'll just whip it out of the CD holder I have up on my sun guard, and take it out, pop it in. I'll switch straight over to 5, and I'll just listen to the last, and then I switch right over to 8 right after that, which is an amazing track called No Guts, No Glory.
Last chance, one final chance. It now shall be. No guts, no glory.
And No Guts, No Glory is, in my opinion, the epitome of Bolt Thrower. Bolt Thrower is just a riff factory, and there's some fucking driving riffs in this album, and especially in No Guts, No Glory. I think that one, it just makes you just want to get in a mosh pit and just headbang and just fucking go crazy. And you know, it's really masterfully constructed. All the Bolt Thrower albums are kinda in general the same. It's just amazing how they can essentially keep putting out the same product and still be hitting gold every single time. And perhaps it's just because I listened to it first, but Mercenary definitely takes its place as number 3 on this list. So Bolt Thrower is a death metal band, and death metal can go off in a lot of different directions. You can have super hyper technical stuff, and you can have, like Bolt Thrower, just a riff factory, just this driving, plotting force. And kind of more than Bolt Thrower, I think the driving, thrashing sound can be done better. It can be more tightly refined, and you find this in the weirdest of places with number 2 on this list, Cannabis Corpse's sophomore effort, Tube of the Resonated. Yeah, that's right, not Cannibal Corpse, Cannabis Corpse. This band started off as a joke band doing joke covers of Cannibal Corpse songs, and even still, all their album titles and song titles are just parodies of Cannibal Corpse songs. Tube of the Resonated comes from the album Tomb of the Mutilated, and while all their songs are parody titles, the music is original. And as far as original music goes, this shit fucking rocks. Let me go ahead and give you some of these song titles real quick. Cronolith, Mummified in Bong Water, Disposal of the Baggie, Every Bud Smokin', Sentenced to Burn One, Addicted to Hash in a Tin, Gallery of Stupid High. These are all just parody songs of Cannibal Corpse material. But you know what? The original music in here is so fucking good. You know, it almost kind of makes me wish that they hadn't chosen this silly band name, Cannabis Corpse, and the joke song titles, because the material here is really, really good, and a lot of people write it off as sort of like this weed-based Al Yankovic death metal parody band. It's not that at all. These guys are really, really talented, and I sang the praises of Municipal Waste earlier. These guys actually have 2 common band members who do Municipal Waste on one side, and then they go over and they do Cannabis Corpse on the other. Their first studio album was an album called Blunted at Birth, and I got it here on the original vinyl, and they actually, no bullshit, recorded this in their kitchen in Richmond, Virginia. See, I even have the vinyl here, which is basically just a bloodshot eye. They got a lot of albums out after that. They have The Weedening, they have Left Hand Pass, they have their split with Ghoul, another amazing band called Splatterhash, and they look like they're going to keep putting up material for as long as they can, and that's a good thing, because like Bolt Thrower, these guys really know how to put together a riff and really just make a driving, pounding song that just makes you just want to go fucking crazy and break everything in your fucking house. So that was number 2 of the best, so let's take a look at the best of the rest. about wraps all that up, so let's take a look at just the best, period. No bullshit. Now, I've talked a lot about these bands just being thrashing bands, making you want to go crazy, and I've kind of been downplaying the technical aspect of metal and how it can really show some amazing musicianship. And there is one band that does make some amazing riffs and makes that into just this amazing music that is just, it's just mind-blowing. I don't know how else to say it. It's just fucking ridiculous. You're just like, how did a human being come up with this? Now, their first album, Piece of Time, it kind of was just samey death metal. Came out in 1990, and you know what? It showed a little bit of there being something just underneath the surface that could be really special, but there's nothing really to differentiate it that much from what else was going on in the Florida death metal scene. You get to their third album, Elements, and now we've gone completely off the rails. There are just some crazy ass songs on here. We've gone like almost straight up into like death metal jazz fusion with Latin drum arrangements and shit. Like, it's technically magnificent, but it's just a little bit too disjointed for most metalheads, and you're going to be listening to Elements wondering, like, what the fuck is going on here? I mean, Samba Brisa is basically just a Latin jazz song. But it should be said that that middle album is just right. It is just what the doctor ordered. So I'm going to give the number one slot to Atheist, their sophomore effort, Unquestionable Presence. Where do I even start with this? Mother Man is fucking ridiculous, and then after that we get the title track, Unquestionable Presence, which the band Atheist says that a big influence on their music was the band Rush, the progressive rock band. And in Unquestionable Presence, the title track, you definitely hear that. There's a lot of riffs in there that sound like a prog rock song with just really heavy guitars. And then we get to Retribution, Enthralled in Essence, which has my favorite guitar solo of all time, bar none. That just sounds fucking incredible. I don't know how else to say it. In Incarnation's Dream, The Formative Years, Brains, and The Psychic Saw, you know, there's nothing on here that's anywhere close to filler. Everything on here is just so musically complex, but definitely has those thrashing, driving elements that make you want to get up and go into a mosh pit, but also the type of stuff that makes you want to like sit down, put on some headphones, some really high quality headphones, and just sit back and just listen to it and listen to the musicianship. Really, whatever mood you're in, I mean, this album's got something for you. I mean, even if we were counting Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and all of these other classic heavy metal bands, I'd still put this at number one. I mean, it's just so awesome, and it took the Florida death metal scene in the early 90s from kind of just being samey and sounding all kind of like the different versions of the same bands to showing that death metal can be something crazy and way out there. You have Pestilence put out Spheres shortly after that, and then there you have it. Boom. Technical death metal, progressive death metal, tech death, progressive prog metal, whatever. All that stuff just takes off after that. And it's could be said that had this album not come out, we might not have that, or we certainly wouldn't have it at the level that we have it today. And so there, that does it. Those are my top 5 heavy metal albums of all time. Hope you enjoyed the list, and I'll see you next time.